Alright you guys, so for this test hand video to get started off with, we are going to be shuffling our deck and then starting off with Solrairion's card and combos. We've got our starter off, we're drawing our first opening hand. Alright, so with Solrairon, how you want to open with this deck is you want at least 1 to 2 normal units you can use to set up on the board for later plays and for other cards to start filtering out the deck. So we already have the Sakab, which we'll hold on to because it'll become relevant later, and we do have the Aegis Mirror Dragon. I am going to hold on to this because it is a normal unit that I can filter out later for the deck if I wanted to, and then the rest of these we don't need. The Gradius Grotto is in order, so I can't take advantage of it, so we'll put these on the bottom for the redraw, and then we'll go ahead and draw. Okay, not bad. We got a heal, a Drilling Angel. The Drilling Angel is honestly the most important piece here for future plays. Our deck is shuffled and ready to go. So we'll draw for turn. Another front, not the best opening hand. We'll drop the Sorceress because it doesn't do anything, but I do want to hold on to the front triggers for defense. And then we'll go into Solrairon. She doesn't do anything. The opponent will then attack us. We lose out under the heal trigger. Okay, not looking good, but we can make it work. Draw. We got another trigger. So this is honestly the worst starting I've ever started with. Illyrion's on right effect kicks in, and we are going to guess the top card of our deck. Now, I'm always 9 times out of 10 with Illyrion, I'm going to guess a normal unit, because if we guess a normal unit, that means that we can add it to our hand, so it gets back the card that we discarded. So I'm going to guess normal unit. It is a normal unit, and you have the option of putting it into your hand. Now for me, I already have a perfect art in hand, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to soul charge this for later skills so that I have the soul to use it with. I don't see the point adding another perfect art into my hand because my hand will get cloggy, so I'd rather just use it to add to my soul for my other skills later. I'll go in with Stogron and then I will attack. Drive check. Caliwell, perfect. The opponent will take their turn, will take a point of damage. Dispersible, and then we'll finally go into our turn. So stand and draw. Another trigger unit. Our hand is really bad. We're loaded with triggers and things like that, so we just have to unfortunately keep dropping the defensives so that we can get our plays going. We'll go into Solrairon now, and now that we have Solrairon going, we can get some other plays started. So with Solrairon entering in, Stogron's effect kicks in. We'll call Stogron here, and then I'm actually going to call Illyrion here to the rearguard circle. I'm going to place it here, and then we will go ahead and use Illyrion's effect. So with Illyrion, when she comes into play in our Vanguard as Solrairon in its name, we get to pick one of the cards in our hand that is a normal unit, put it to the top of the deck, and then draw another card. Now, our Drilling Angel is not the best target because there's no targets in here that I want to call out later. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my Cadwaya on the top. I will draw a card, which is another Cadwaya, and now this is on top of here. Now with my next play, I'll go ahead and call out my Sakab, and then I'll go ahead and call out my Cadwaya. Now, I'm actually going to hold on using Sakab's skill because of Solraion's ability, which is going to let me check the top 2 and then call something and put something on top. That is one option, or the other option is you can use the Sakab now if you want to, and then get a card draw, since you already know the top card of your deck is the other Cadwaya, and you don't want to add this back to your hand with your ability. That is another option. It just means that your attack patterns will perform a little bit differently, but you have the soul for all the skills needed this turn to make it work. The only problem with doing that is that if you choose to use Sakab now, you will not know what the next card on the top of your deck is, so you really will be playing a guessing game if you want to be a little RNG, but we're not going to risk it like that, so we're just going to leave the Cadwaya on top because we know what it is, and then we're just going to go ahead and go into our battle phase. Now, Solraion's skill at the beginning of battle phase, we guess the top card of our deck. If it's a normal or if it's a trigger unit, we'll perform the Soul Blast, which is what this is for now, and then we'll go ahead and guess normal unit. It is a normal unit, so all of our units in play get 5,000 power. So this gets 5, 5, 5, 5, and the Vanguard has +5 as well. Great powerhouse turn. Then we'll go ahead and start making our attacks. So because I want to use Stogron's ability a little bit later for the fact that I will want to get my counter blast back, I'm going to use Cadwaya to attack first. He's swinging for 15. Cat Wild performance skill at the end of the battle. We Soul Blast 1. We'll check top 3, which we know is one of these. And then the card that I want to add to my hand for next turn is actually going to be this one, because it's going to be another piece that I need later in the game to set up for my other cards. So Cat Wild retires. We did our Soul Blast and we shuffle these. Alright, we'll go ahead and cut the deck. With that done, Solrairon will then attack next. Solraion's skill will kick in. We'll counterblast the normal unit face down. We'll check the top 2 cards of the deck. We got Cadwaya and Interius. Now, depending on what you're playing against, it is completely up to you on which one you want to call out. You can call the Cadwaya for next turn to have a body on board to use for that ability, or you can call out Interius right now, which will gain 10,000 power to push. Now, because I have the Drilling Angel in my hand as well as this, I will have a card that's going to come onto the board and give me Soul Charge for next turn. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to call out my Interius, and I'm going to leave this on top of the deck so that I can use Sakab's skill to counterblast 1 and then draw this Cadwaya. So now I have access to it next turn instead of just putting it on the bottom of the deck to filter my deck out for triggers, and I get to improve my hand and get pieces to swing for next turn with. Interius' skill will kick in. He'll get plus 10,000 power, which means that he's a 23k beast stick on his own, and then we'll go in for triggers. Now, I've seen 2 out of my 3 fronts already, so I don't really think we'll be seeing another one, but I still like to attack like this because in case I do see my last copy of my front, it's a good option to still do. So, first check, Solrairon, perfect, Persona Ride for next turn. Second check, Drilling Angel. Okay, a combo piece for next turn. So not bad at all. We'll then go in with our Stogron, who is swinging in for 15 plus 13, which is 28, and then he'll use his ability. He did see Solraion's skill go off this turn, so he'll retire himself, and then we'll get a counter charge. We're going to flip over the heal trigger because we want to heal back that normal unit, and then we'll go in with the Sakab and the Interius, and this column is just insanely powerful, with this card being 23 and then this card being 13. It's 36 to our opponent. So not a bad play at all. We have a really solid hand. We've got a couple of combo pieces going to next turn. We have a 1-card starter, which is this card, which will give us Soul. We have Cadwaya. We have our Solrairon for our Persona Ride. And then everything else we can use to defend next turn. If you can hold on to one Angel, that would be really good to do, because you can also use that for combo plays next turn if you want to, depending on what your setup is like. We have Sakab in play, which is for an open CB for Solrairon or Sakab next turn, and we're still in a good spot. Alright, going into our second test hand, this is what we have. We have Sakab, Cadwaya, and we have 3 triggers. So again, we really want to hold on to the normal units that we can use with our ability to make sure that we can have targets for Solraion's skill. So these triggers, all of them have to go, but we're going to hold on to the Sakab and the Cadwala. So these will go to the bottom, and let's see, we get trigger, Illyrian. Okay, not actually a horrible start at all. All of those pieces are really solid to hold on to and use. Give our deck a nice little shuffle after the redraw, and then we'll get going. Alright, we'll take our turn. We'll start off with a stand and draw. Let's see here. So, Illyrian's going to come out as our very first card ever on board, and she is a piece to get us started, and I don't see any others. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to drop the Sakab here, and I'm going to go ahead and ride into a Illyrian. So then the opponent will take their turn because Illyrian does nothing. We'll take a point of damage. We lost our Angel. That's okay. We still have 3 copies left in deck to go off of. We'll draw for turn. We got another Cadwala. So our hand is loaded with Cadwalas. We can go ahead and drop one of these and then ride into the next one. Now, in case you're wondering why I'm holding on to the defensive, it's because this deck is kind of on the slower end sometimes. I do feel like in a normal matchup, if I'm playing against anything competitively and they want to slam or rush me, I at least have 1 card to stop a big attack coming my way if I don't want to take a lot of damage. But for any other situation, if you did not want to give up any of these cards, I would just drop this first. That's completely up to you. I just think it's important to hold on to 1 defensive depending on what you're playing against, and for me, I don't know what I'm playing against, so therefore I'm just going to hold on to this just in case. So Illyrian's skill kicks in. I'm always going to guess normal unit because your deck is predominantly normal units at this point still. The Sakab right here is a normal unit, and I actually am going to, because I gave up 1, and I have a lot of Kadwayas in my hand, I'm going to get 2 out, and I see no other soul charging pieces. I'm going to put this card, I'm not going to put it in my hand, I'm actually going to soul charge it instead, simply for the fact that I already have the Sakab here, and I have the Sakab in drop zone, so I can potentially get it later. And I will go ahead and swing. Drive check, front trigger, 10k to the front row. And then the opponent will take their turn. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I will go ahead and stop this now because I want to stay on low damage. And then I will take my turn. Stand and draw. We got a circling sorceress. Now everything else in our hand we actually will be holding on to and need, so we can go ahead and start dropping those triggers that aren't going to do anything for us. We'll go into Solrairon. Solrairon will come in first. The ability of Stogron will kick in. We'll call Stogron to the rear, and we'll call Illyrion to the rear as well. I'm going to call it behind the Vanguard this time because I have 2 cards that can be in the back row that I can actually use them with. Illyrion first. I'm going to put the Kadwaya on the top of the deck, and then I will draw a card. Okay, that's fine. This will go to the top, and then I will make my next play by calling out the Sakab here. And then my next play will be me calling out the Kadwaya here. Actually, no, I have to do it the other way. My first play is actually going to be calling the Sakab here over the Kadwaya. I'm not going to use the skill yet because I do know that top chromatic is a normal unit, which we want to guarantee for Solrairon. So I'll wait on that. And then that will be my first opening play. Yep, that's what we'll do. So Solrairon will go into battle phase. I'll Soul Blast the Sakab. The top card of my deck is a normal unit. I'll give 5k to all of my units. And then I will have my Kadwaya attack first. Kadwaya skill will kick in. We'll Soul Blast. We'll check top 3. I'm going to take the Persona Ride to hand. And I'm going to leave these in the deck because those are our targets that can be called out later. Both of these are crappy options. But I do, depending on where I'm at in the matchup in my hand, I do want the extra shield value because I'm not going to get a lot of cards added back to my hand. So I'm going to call the Disma here, and I'm going to leave this on top so that this way I can just push the rest of my rear guards. First check, second check, cool beans. And then obviously we'll split the 10k here, and then we will split the 10k here. And then we've already given another 10k to our entire front row, so that we're making magic numbers all across the board. Next up, we'll have Stogron attack, and then we will countercharge when he gets done striking. And then we'll have Sakab boost Disma and attack. This was my second test hand with Solrairon. I don't feel like this turn was that powerful. I think I misplayed earlier somewhere, but we're going to keep test handing and keep playing, obviously, until we see what we want to see and showcase the best of Solraion's powers. Alright, we did our shuffle and our redraw. This is our first opening hand. So this is actually a really solid opening hand. With me and Solrairon, I do hold on to 1 copy of the Persona Ride because it's so important for the deck. The Drilling Angel is a combo piece that we're going to use later, and then obviously the Sakab as well. All really solid opening pieces. These 2 cards don't do anything. One is a trigger, one back in the deck, and I already have my copy in Solrairon in hand, so having another one is just overkill and not good for us in the early game. So let's see what else we get. We got a Kadwaya and we got an Illyrion. So a really solid opening hand. We have a lot of targets that we can use for the Drilling Angel later in the game, and then we have some cards we can get rid of now so that this way they're not clogging us up for future plays. So we will draw for turn. We got another Kadwaya. In this situation, I'm actually going to give up this copy of Kadwaya because I only have 1 card in my hand for the first turn for the Illyrion to filter out the deck. So this can go, and then we'll go into our Illyrion. We'll pass the turn over. We'll take our point of damage. We lost another Kadwaya. That's okay. We'll then draw for turn. We have another copy of Solrairon. Now, this is where things can get tricky. You know you're going to get the Illyrion, and the Solrairon does nothing for you. So, while I would hate to give up a Persona Ride, I think that because I would like every other piece in my hand, I think I'll give up the Illyrion. And I'm going to give her up simply for the fact that on my first turn on Solrairon, I'm going to get it and use its ability. So I should be fine for the first turn, so this can go. Illyrion's on ride effect kicks in. Now Stogron is on top. I'm going to guess normal unit. It is a normal unit. And for this particular normal unit, my hand is looking kind of weak, but I can take advantage of this next turn. So what I'll do is I'm going to add this to hand for my next turn. And because my hand is not that strong whatsoever, I'm going to make a play that's not the smartest, but I'm going to call out my Dragon Tree Wretch Soda Sakab now. The reason being is because next turn when you ride onto Solrairon, Stogron and Illyrion are going to come to the rear guards. You get to counterblast one, get another piece to your hand, and therefore draw another card, making up for what you discarded. So I'm not going to call this card in the front, and the main reason being is because Soda Sakab specifically states when a rear guard is placed in the front row of the same column as this unit, you counterblast one and draw a card. So it's better for me just to leave it back here, and then come next turn, I can go ahead and set up for that card. I am going to save a lot of my other cards for my next turn, just because I'm going to get 2 bodies onto the board, so there's no point in filling up right now. Stogron's going to come in and attack, drive check. It's my final copy of Kadwaya, so they're all in my hand now, and they're all out in play. And that's perfectly fine. I just need a soul charging piece, which I have the angel for, and we'll see how it goes for next turn. So then we'll take our point of damage. We got a critical trigger, lost out on that. Since we hit a defensive, I'm not going to take any more attacks. Alright, we will stand and we will draw. We have an Illyrion. That's also my final copy, which means that these two are not good targets for my Drilling Angel anymore. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to discard Interris, and I'm going to ride into my Solrairon. Solraion's now on top of the Vanguard circle, so Stogron and Illyria kick in. I'm going to call Stogron here, and I'm going to call Illyrion to the back. Soda Sakab's effect will kick in first, so we'll counterblast one, copy of the Kadwala, we'll draw a card. We got the Dismal, that's perfectly fine. Then Illyrion will kick in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a copy actually of my, let's see here, my Drilling Angel on top first, and then draw a card. And I got my Interris. Okay. So what I want to do now, because that changes things, this is actually a really good play here. I'll put my Illyrion in play, and I'm going to put this back on top, and then I'm going to draw this from the top of my deck. Put this here. And for my next and final play, I'm going to call out onto the rearguard circle the Kadwala. And now we can start going. So the first thing that happens is Solraion's ability will kick in. We'll Soul Blast one. The top card of my deck is a normal unit, which is the Interris. We'll leave that there. And then we will go into our battle phase. Stogron will attack first for 1500. Stogron retires. Get the counter charge. Then boosted by Illyrion, Solrairon is going to go next. We'll counterblast one. Check top two. And then I'm going to put Interris in front. I don't get the skill of Soda Sakab because it's a hard once per turn, but Interris comes in play and gets additional 10,000 power. Now, obviously, depending on what you're playing against, sometimes putting the PG on top is okay, but because we have this card to push with now. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to put this on the bottom and then just focus on pushing this turn because I already have 2 copies of the Persona Ride in my hand. But this will obviously change depending on what you're playing against. So, Twin Drive check. The first is a Drilling Angel, and then the second is a critical trigger. I'll give the critical here to my Vanguard and then power to the other Kadwaya. And now both of my columns are making really solid numbers. So this one I believe is 13 plus 15 plus 10, so 25 plus 13 is 38,000 to the Vanguard. We don't get the skill, that's okay. The next one is Soda Sakab, supported by Interris. So this one is 18 plus 5, 23, and then plus 13. This is 36 to Vanguard. So a really solid number turn. This was a push because the attacks were just so big. There was another way of doing this. I realized that you could have also gone back. We could go back a couple of steps. We can put this here. This is my drive check. We'll stand up everything, like literally there's another strategy you could have done. The other strategy you could have done was before you even superior called this, and this was on top of this, which is the pre-G, and then we put the Cadwaya back before we call it out. What you could have done was, and then Stogron was here, I believe. Yep. If you wanted to, and you wanted to do something different to make a stronger column, the option would have been was to call out the Drilling Angel here. You can use the skill to get another piece of soul for next turn, which is the copy of Antarius. Move that there. Look at top 3 cards of the deck. We know that the Antarius is there, and then we can call that here. And then we can shuffle these in. This will help compress our deck and then give us the next attacker that comes out a really strong booster and have this card become a 10k. The only problem with playing like this and performing the strategy the way I just did right now is that now that our deck is shuffled, we don't know what our Solrairon is going to be. So again, this is that sort of risk factor-ish playstyle that you have to consider when playing Solrairon. I know that looking at my drop zone and looking at my deck, I have currently right now 2 triggers out, and then the remainder of my deck is normal units. So I have 14 triggers in deck, and the rest is still predominantly normal. So I'm going to perform the skill, and let's see how I get. This is not guaranteed to always happen to you. I want to make that very clear whatsoever. Then I'm going to guess normal unit. I was lucky enough to get it. This is an option you can do to push harder. The 5k is already there, and then continue your other plays. Because now how that changes is if I took that risk, which is where I think this deck can be good at sometimes when taking risk, is Stogron comes in for 15, he goes away, you get the counter charge. Now Solrairon will come in, and then I will perform my counter blast again. I will look at the top 2 cards of the deck, and then I will call out a Dependable Pierce Dragon, and then I'll move this Soda Sakab to the bottom. Then I'll start my Twin Drive, which will be 1 critical trigger. I'm going to give the critical here, but the power here, and then a 2, which is another critical trigger, critical here, and then we'll give the power here. And then thanks to that being all set up, we can push. So now this becomes a 23k booster with a 25k attacker. That is a lot of power. That is 48,000. And then this card is just 18 plus 10, which is 28 plus 13, which is 41. So 41, 48. This is an option you can do. That style of play I just did was very risky, but I think this is where Solrairon exceeds at when you play risky like this. It's a big brain thing. It's a lot of gambling. It's a lot of like trial and error, but it's worth it to me. I think that this is where the deck succeeds at.